In Honduras, a deadly bus crash kills at least 4.
Rescue crews use a crane to free several trapped passengers. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Matarang Agila International. Now for the headlines. Marcos administration declares Walang Gutom 2027 food program as a government flagship program. Micronesia backs the Philippines' bid to join the United Nations Security Council. Chinese leader Xi Jinping to unveil Beijing's vision in the Belt and Road Summit. A powerful magnitude 6.3 earthquake jolts western Afghanistan again. And Philippines hosts the night of celebrating women in the industry. Mixed oil price changes are expected to take effect tomorrow. According to oil firms' advisories, motorists will have to pay 55 centavos per liter more for gasoline. Meanwhile, diesel and kerosene per liter will go down by 95 centavos. This marks the fourth price rollback on diesel and kerosene and the first price hike on gasoline this month. The adjustments will take effect at 6 in the morning.
7 major transport groups in the Philippines have confirmed the decision not to participate in the planned nationwide strike this Monday, ensuring that there will be no transport paralysis during this time. 95% of the members from these 7 groups have pledged to continue their operations and refrain from engaging in the mass protests. The Philippine National Police and the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority will also be mobilized to offer assistance to anyone potentially affected, further ensuring the smooth flow of activities. Nevertheless, several local government units have announced the suspension of in-person classes to minimize potential disruptions. These include the entire Pampanga province, Marikina City, Pasay City, and select cities in Laguna and Pangasinan, among others. Various universities have also taken proactive measures, shifting to online classes during this period, including Adamson University, Mapua University, Polytechnic University, and others.
The Department of Agriculture, or DA, assures the public of sufficient rice supply for the first quarter of 2024. The agency disclosed that palay or unhusked rice production this month of October reached its peak this wet season. The Agriculture Department was expecting 77 days of national rice stock inventory this month. Meanwhile, once the wet season harvests end this November, DA expects about 94 days of national stock inventory. This, however, excludes the additional rice imports last September. DA still expects rice imports in the third quarter to reach 271,000 metric tons.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has signed into effect Executive Order Number 44, officially establishing the Walang Gutom 2027 food stamp program as a government flagship initiative. This executive order mandates the Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, to spearhead and oversee the seamless implementation of the program. The DSWD is tasked with taking all necessary measures to ensure the successful execution of the food stamp program. Funding for this initiative will be drawn from the appropriations of the department and its partner agencies. The food stamp program's primary objective is to mitigate the incidence of voluntary hunger among low-income households by providing essential monetary-based assistance. It aligns with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal of eradicating hunger, advancing food security, and promoting sustainable agriculture by the year 2030.
The Marcos administration is seeking to achieve total national broadband connectivity by 2026. Vin Pascua reports.
The Marcos administration is pushing to achieve the completion of its free Wi-Fi and the National Fiber Backbone project by the year 2026. This in collaboration with the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or the DICT. According to the agency, the national fiber backbone lies at 70% in Luzon area. The Communications Technology Department urged investors to establish cable landing stations in Mindanao area. The national program involves building the government's fiber backbone, covering 28,000 kilometers of fiber cable in the entire country. Meanwhile, the free Wi-Fi project is set to target 110,000 sites by the end of 2026 or mid-2027. This project covers public places like parks, municipal halls, public schools, state universities and colleges, and other facilities. Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Philippines has engaged in radio challenges with China. The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, said that BRP Benguet has issued consecutive radio challenges to a Chinese naval vessel for shadowing while near Pagasa Island. BRP Benguet was en route to Rizal Reef Station for its regular rotation and resupply mission when the tailing occurred. The command added that the Chinese Navy warship carried out dangerous maneuvers when it crossed the Philippine Navy transport vessel's bow at a distance of 350 yards. This made BRP Benguet issue radio challenges, citing the violation of the collision regulations and demanding it to steer clear from its path. The AFP, however, did not disclose how the encounter ended.
The Philippines and Canada have signed an agreement to provide Manila free access to Ottawa's satellite-based technology to detect dark ships. The Canadian Embassy has announced that the two states inked the deal during the 6th Canada-Philippines Joint Commission on Bilateral Cooperation meeting. Last month, Canadian Ambassador to the Philippines, David Hartman, affirmed that Ottawa is prepared to deploy the system once the agreement is signed. The satellite-based system would allow the Philippines to have a near real-time monitoring capability in helping to enhance its maritime domain awareness and effectively combat illegal fishing in its territorial waters.
UN Assistant Secretary General Mami Mitsutori has conveyed the international bloc's readiness to provide financial assistance to the Philippines in addressing the profound effects of climate change within the country. The Assistant Secretary General commends President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. for his steadfast leadership in confronting climate risks and various other disaster risks that confront the Philippines. She recognizes the country's proactive approach to addressing climate-related challenges and disaster resilience. Mitsutori also expresses gratitude for the Philippines' willingness to host the biennial Asia-Pacific Ministerial Conference for Disaster Risk Reduction in October 2024.
The Philippines secures the support of Micronesia for its bid to attain a non-permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council. Federated States of Micronesia President Wesley Simina conveys this endorsement during this visit to the Malacanang Palace. He acknowledges the Philippines' competence and expertise in maintaining law and order and expresses interest in seeking assistance from the country to enhance the training of Micronesia's police force. President Simina also states that his country requires more people in the maritime and transportation sectors. In response, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. shows readiness to deploy skilled workers to assist Micronesia.
131 Filipinos have successfully left Gaza City amid the escalating violence between Israel and the Hamas militant group. The crisis alert level has been elevated to level 4, mandating the repatriation of Filipinos from the affected area. 78 out of the 131 Filipinos have reached a location near the Rafah border crossing close to Egypt, with the remaining 53 also managing to exit northern Gaza, an area expected to face intense hostilities. The Philippines' Southeast Asian allies have also offered cooperation in order to repatriate their own citizens in Gaza. However, Egypt remains a major bottleneck in the repatriation effort, as the Marcos administration is still engaged in negotiations with the Northeast African country to facilitate the safe return of Filipinos. Coming up, after 3 years of isolation, China reopens the Belt and Road Summit. U.S. State Secretary Antony Blinken mounts a frantic effort to avoid a wider war in the Middle East. And thousands of people crowd for aid and shelter in southern Gaza as the Rafah border remains closed. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Ang Lutong Daza dito sa Net25, ako si Sandy Daza.
At ako naman si Patwi Daza, and we are the Cooking Cousins. Asahan nyo ang mas nakakatakam na mga recipes, mas malakas na halakhakan,
At tawag ko rito put-put eh.
at syempre mga celebrity guests na game na game.
Express mo yun eh. Oh, galing.
Kita-kits sa kusina, Lutong Daza, Saturdays, 11 a.m. sa Net25.
Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Magandang araw, magandang araw. Any time of the day, it's super saya. Lalo na kung si Ara lagi mong kasama. Magandang araw, magandang araw.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. After nearly 3 years of COVID-19 pandemic isolation, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has gathered leaders this week for the Belt and Road Forum. Elijah Villanueva tells us more.
Chinese President Xi Jinping has invited world leaders in Beijing this week for the Belt and Road Summit. Xi's high-profile summit aims to highlight China's role in economic development over the past decade and projects its ambitious plans to serve as the alternative global leader to the United States. Russia's Vladimir Putin is expected to attend. The two-day forum also brings together business representatives and delegations from more than 140 countries, including the Middle East and Global South nations. Sources say missing from the guest list are top leaders from major Western powers. The Belt and Road Forum also marks China's first time hosting since emerging from nearly 3 years of COVID-19 pandemic isolation. Xi's government has been discreet in the lead-up to the event, but political experts believe Xi will use the forum to pitch a broader vision of how China wants to impact the world. Think tanks in Washington point out Xi's message is clear. The current United States-led bloc of nations has failed to bring prosperity or peace to many developing countries. They say Xi wants to put a spotlight on the necessity of a new order that would effectively discuss today's issues and anticipate tomorrow's challenges. One of Xi's important international milestones is the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI. Some analysts consider the Xi-led infrastructure project as an expansion of China's power. Sometimes referred to as the New Silk Road, China's BRI was originally devised to link East Asia and Europe through physical infrastructure. The project has since expanded to Africa, Oceania, and Latin America, significantly broadening China's sphere of influence. Analysts also expect Xi to discuss the unification of China and Taiwan, as well as the issue in the West Philippine Sea. Other officials say Chinese leaders will likely discuss the war between Israel and Hamas and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Think tanks also assert Xi wants to be seen that when he hosts a summit, China, through his leadership, can deliver an effective reformation of global governance. Though Xi may look to unveil his big ambitions on the world stage, other reports say many participants attending the Belt and Road Forum are more interested in enhancing their economic partnerships with China. Elijah Villanueva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi says that Israel's actions in Gaza have gone beyond the scope of self-defense, as he urges the Israeli government must cease its collective punishment of the people of Gaza.
这一问题的根源在于巴勒斯坦独立建国的夙愿迟迟未能实现，在于巴勒斯坦人民遭受的历史不公一直没有能够得到纠正。
These comments came during a courtesy call to his Saudi Arabian Prince Faisal bin Farhan as Israel was gearing for a ground offensive against Hamas militants in Gaza. He urges the Israeli leadership to listen to the calls of the international community and the UN Secretary General, signaling China's strongest stance on the conflict so far. More than 1 million people in the northern part of the Gaza Strip have been ordered to flee ahead of the expected assault, an exodus that, if not done properly, could set off another humanitarian disaster. Wang told Prince Faisal all parties should not take any action to escalate the situation and should return to the negotiating table as soon as possible. The High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, Joseph Borrell, also echoed his sentiments.
I reaffirm our condemnation of the indiscriminate attacks by Hamas, and we agreed that the only solution, the only stable solution, is the two-state solution.
Wang Yi also said in a separate call with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken that Washington should play a constructive and responsible role in the conflict and urged the convening of an international peace meeting as soon as possible to promote the reaching of broad consensus.
以色列有建国的权利，巴勒斯坦同样有建国的权利。以色列人得到了生存的保障，巴勒斯坦人的生存谁来关心？ 以色列的民族已经不在世界上颠沛流离，巴勒斯坦民族何时才能重返家园？
New Zealanders have shown their Labour Party government the door. Voters elected a conservative regime Saturday led by former businessman Christopher Luxon. Rosel Feria tells us more.
Christopher Luxon is a former airline executive who has promised tax relief and to build the economy. His national party will form a coalition with the Libertarian ACT Party. The election campaign had been dominated by an increasingly difficult economic situation and the spike in the cost of living that has hit New Zealanders hard. Luxon promises to do something about that.
We will bring down the cost of living. We will restore law and order. We will deliver better health care. And we will educate our children so that they can grow up to live the lives that they dream of.
Some of his other plans for his first 100 days as Prime Minister include a crackdown on youth crime. He also wants a ban on cell phones in schools and plans to scrap the Labour Party's proposed fuel tax hikes. Defeated Prime Minister Chris Hipkins conceded his centre-left party's 6 years in power has ended. Hipkins replaced two-term leader Jacinda Ardern, who left politics in January. Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Australians have soundly rejected a proposal to give the country's Indigenous people a greater voice in government. In a referendum Saturday, the proposal to acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders went down to defeat after 59% of voters said no. Catherine Ertula has the details.
The result is a huge blow to the country's Indigenous population. The proposal would have enshrined in the Constitution an Indigenous voice to Parliament. It would have acted as an advocate for the country's Aboriginal minority. Aboriginal leaders reacted with sorrow and anger. They say the country's white majority ignored a chance to atone for the country's colonial past and the brutal dispossession of Aboriginal people. Indigenous leader Esme Bamblett blames misinformation for the outcome.
One of the reasons I think we didn't get the yes vote was people had misinformation for a start, and a lot of people don't know about Aboriginal people. They don't live in our communities, they don't work in our communities, and they don't know what we go through. They don't know the extent of dispossession, and they don't know the history.
Prime Minister Anthony Albanese urged the divided nation to heal in the spirit of unity. He promised his government will work to deliver Indigenous recognition, but it's unclear what options he has. Catherine Ortula for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Russia's top diplomat Sergei Lavrov has arrived in Beijing in anticipation of an upcoming visit by Russian President Vladimir Putin. Beijing is set to host representatives from 130 countries to commemorate a decade of its Belt and Road Initiative, a pivotal geopolitical project aimed at expanding China's global influence. Lavrov will travel to North Korea from 18th to the 19th of October following the summit. Meanwhile, Moscow's Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov is seeking to meet with representatives of the Hamas militant group in Qatar next week. The objective of these talks is to discuss efforts to secure the release of Israeli hostages. Russia has maintained a delicate balance in denouncing violence from both sides in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas, managing to sustain close relations with both Israeli and Palestinian authorities.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that Russia would repeat last winter's strategy of hitting Kyiv power plants. He said their forces would strengthen their air defenses and launch new protective measures.
Ми маємо бути свідомі, що таких російських ударів із наближенням зими стане більше. Більше по об'єктах генерації, по мережі. До цього треба бути готовими. Ми максимально посилимо ППО, так як це реально в наявних умовах, навіть більш ніж реально ми домовляємось з партнерами про такі кроки у захисті, які раніше не застосовувалися.
But Zelensky stressed the success of these efforts also depends on the readiness of local authorities, energy, and telecom operators. Zelensky said that everyone needs to work together to prevent Russian attacks from disrupting Ukraine during the winter. He urged stability and strength in all areas, including on the battlefield. Ukrainian intelligence reports insist that Russia has not changed its intention to throw Ukraine into darkness. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin repeated that his special military operations wanted to stop the war in Ukraine. But Putin said Zelensky has repeatedly ditched security and draft peace agreements with Russia. He also blamed the West and said it encouraged Ukraine to stop the negotiations.
Agreements were signed in the capital of Belarus, Minsk, called the Minsk Agreements, and Russia did everything to push for their implementation and resolve the conflict. However, they did not allow us to do it either. What is more, eventually, Ukraine's leaders simply said that they did not like these Minsk Agreements and were not going to deliver on them. This attitude and the push by the United States to drag Ukraine into NATO led to an escalation. Let me remind you that when Ukraine gained its independence or proclaimed its independence, the fundamental document that was the foundation for an independent Ukraine was the Declaration of Independence. The main provision of this Declaration of Independence is that Ukraine is a neutral state.
President Vladimir Putin said that suggestions the United States should prepare for a war against Russia and China were nonsense. Last week, a report from the Strategic Posture Commission by the U.S. Congress said Washington must prepare for possible simultaneous wars with Moscow and Beijing. But Putin insisted thoughts of war between Russia and the United States were unhealthy, and if people were making such suggestions public, they could cause concern to Moscow. He said, to say the United States is preparing for a war with Russia, then Russia is preparing for war. Putin explained if one wants peace, then one should get ready for war. He said if a confrontation happens between the West and Russia, it will be a completely different war, and clarified that no one in their right mind should allow the possibility of war between nuclear powers. The Russian leader also clarified that Russia and China are not uniting in some kind of military political alliance. Putin said relations with China are important not just for energy or economic sheets, but also for global stability.
The Law and Justice Party, or PIS, in Poland is projected to win the most seats in the general election, according to an exit poll. But it's uncertain if they will secure a third term in office. The exit poll indicates that PIS is set to garner 36.6% of the vote, with the major opposition at 31%. However, the ruling party is anticipated to secure 198 seats in the 460-seat parliament, falling short of the 231 seats required for a majority. If these projections hold true, Donald Tusk's Civic Coalition could have a better chance of forming a coalition government, potentially ending the 8 years of PIS rule in Poland.
Leaders from the European Union and the Western Balkans are slated to convene a summit in Albania's capital city on Monday. The primary focus of this gathering is to discuss a potential pathway to EU membership for 6 countries in the region, namely Albania, Bosnia, Kosovo, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Serbia. Nonetheless, the European bloc has set forth clear prerequisites for these nations, emphasizing the need for substantial economic and political reforms. Key topics of discussion will encompass integrating the Western Balkans into a single market and extending support for their green and digital transformation efforts.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken warned a small group of lawmakers that his department is tracking the possibility that Azerbaijan could soon invade Armenia as President Ilham Aliyev raised his country's flag in the newly retaken region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
Düz 20 yıl bundan evvel Azerbaycan halkı bana büyük itimat göstererek prezident seçkilerinde prezident vəzifəsinə seçmiştir. O vaxt doğma halkıma müraciət ederek söz vermiştim ki, Azerbaycan halkının ve Azerbaycan devletinin milli maraqlarını müdafiə edəcəyəm, Azerbaycanın ərazi bütövlüyünü qoruyacağım.
The call indicates the depth of concern in the administration about Azerbaijan's operations against a breakaway region in the west of the country and the possibility of the conflict spreading. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has previously called on Armenia to open a corridor along its southern border that links mainland Azerbaijan to an exclave bordering Turkey and Iran. He also stated the possibility of solving the issue by force if needed. Lawmakers pressed Blinken on possible measures against Aliyev in response to his country's invasion of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Currently, the State Department was looking at avenues to hold Azerbaijan accountable and isn't planning to renew a long-standing waiver that allows the U.S. to provide military assistance to Baku, adding that Azerbaijan invading southern Armenia was a real possibility in the coming weeks. Still, Blinken expressed confidence about ongoing diplomatic talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan to the Democratic lawmakers, among them Reps Nancy Pelosi and Anna Eshoo of California and Frank Pallone of New Jersey.
Six months of war between the Sudanese armed forces and paramilitary rapid support forces have killed up to 9,000 people.
In Libya, where access to Derna is still so difficult.
United Nations Humanitarian Chief Martin Griffiths says the conflict in Sudan showed no signs of peaceful resolution. Griffiths says the violence also worsened Sudan's economic woes and destroyed infrastructure. The UN mission reports that about 5.6 million have been displaced inside and outside Sudan since the conflict's onset. Vital sectors such as education and basic needs are disrupted. UNICEF fears disruption of basic services can cost the future of 24 million children. There were also reports of rape and gang rape in Khartoum and Darfur, mostly blamed on the rapid support forces. Peace negotiators expressed concern that both sides in the Sudanese conflict lack a clear strategy to manage the crisis. Sources said both parties also failed to arrive at a peaceful resolution. But civilians continue to urge all countries and leaders with influence on the parties to facilitate peace and humanitarian efforts in Sudan. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken continues his shuttle diplomacy as he tries to calm the troubled waters in the Middle East. After first meeting with Israel, Blinken has stopped in Qatar, Jordan, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt. Thomas Eyelikeness reports.
Blinken's top priority is to prevent the spread of the conflict.
Again, not to provoke anyone, but to send a very clear message of deterrence, that no one should do anything that widens this conflict in any way or that furthers aggression against Israel from any other direction.
And to do that, he's trying to enlist the help of America's Arab allies. On Sunday, he met with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The Egyptian president says it's important the tension in the region be reduced. Sisi worries that Israel may overextend its self-defense and transform it into a collective punishment of the Gaza Strip. For his part, Blinken says there are two paths for this region. One, he says, is greater integration of the Palestinian people. He says the other path is the one that's offered by Hamas.
A path, as I said, that offers nothing but death, destruction, terror, nihilism.
Blinken also wants to find ways to get assistance to the Palestinians in Gaza in need. Today, Blinken is back in Israel for a second unscheduled visit. Thomas Eyelikeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
U.S. President Joe Biden has said that taking out the extremists was a necessary requirement for peace in the Israel-Gaza region, but also called for a humanitarian corridor to get critical aid to civilians in the Gaza Strip who remains without access to medicine, food, or water.
I think it'd be a big mistake. Look, what happened in Gaza, in my view, is Hamas and the extreme elements of Hamas don't represent all the Palestinian people. And I think that it would be a mistake for Israel to occupy Gaza again. But to going in and taking out the extremists, the Hezbollah is up north, but Hamas down south is a necessary requirement.
In an interview with the CBS News program 60 Minutes, Biden said that it would be a big mistake if he called for the support of any form of occupation to occur in the Gaza Strip. Israel has launched a relentless bombing campaign and warning more than 1 million people in northern Gaza to move south ahead of the operation as it launches a wave of vengeance against Hamas militants. He continued by saying that Hamas did not represent all of the people of Palestine and called for a two-state solution to occur.
Yes, I do. But there needs to be a Palestinian Authority. There needs to be a path to a Palestinian state.
Israel has faced grave warnings about the implications of putting boots on the ground in Gaza, with aid groups warning of a humanitarian disaster, fears of the conflict escalating, and the challenges of separating militants from civilians in the occupied territory. Israel first occupied Gaza during the 1967 Six-Day War, and it was only fully returned to Palestinians in 2005. A year later, Israel imposed an air, land, and sea blockades on the 140 square mile strip, which is locked in by Egypt and the Mediterranean Sea. In 2007, Israel tightened the blockade after Hamas took control of Gaza from the secular Fatah movement of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas.
The Iron Dome air defense system is the prime example of Israeli military strength. War experts often touted the Iron Dome as the world's best defense against missiles and rockets. But on October 7, 2023, the Gaza-based Hamas group fired missiles that penetrated Israeli defenses. The assault inflicted extensive damage and casualties, which gave birth to the modern war in the Middle East. But why was state-of-the-art defense technology of Iron Dome system less effective against the recent Hamas attacks? A research study says it is a simple question of numbers. The militant group unexpectedly fired several thousand missiles against Israel. The Iron Dome had less than 1,000 interceptors in the field ready to counter the Hamas rockets. Experts also say even the best air defense systems can be overwhelmed if they are overmatched by the number of threats they have to counter. The missiles fired by Hamas cost about $600 each, while the Israeli missiles cost about $60,000. If Hamas fired 5,000 missiles, the bill would come up to be 100 times less expensive than the Iron Dome interceptors, which rounds up to around $48 million. Some analysts believe Hamas executed a careful plan using inexpensive missiles to outwit Israel. The Hamas attack on Israel is a clear example of military asymmetry, a low-cost, less capable approach to disable a more expensive and high-technology system.
Israel denies the existence of a ceasefire as the Rafah border crossing remains closed despite security sources in Egypt saying that a deal had been struck to allow foreigners out of the strip currently under siege by Israeli forces. This means that citizens and foreigners would remain trapped within Gaza's territory, praying for aid as Israel conducts its ground offensive on the northern part of the region. The bombardment of Hamas-ruled Gaza continued overnight, with residents saying it was the heaviest pounding yet in 9 days of conflict. While Palestine remains embattled in gunfire and shelling, 2 Egyptian security sources said Israel had agreed to halt its bombardment of southern Gaza, with the Egyptian-controlled Rafah border crossing expected to allow foreign passport holders to leave. Despite this, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office said that there was currently no truce and humanitarian aid deal in place for Gaza in exchange for foreigners. The situation remains unclear at the Rafah crossing, the only one not controlled by Israel, which has imposed a full blockade on Gaza, where food is running short. Diplomatic efforts have been intensifying to get aid into the territory under intense Israeli bombing following the Hamas militants' attack on Israel. Hundreds of tons of aid from several countries have been held up in Egypt for days, pending a deal for its safe delivery to Gaza, but Egypt has said bombardment had rendered the crossing inoperable. Authorities in Gaza said at least 2,750 people had so far been killed and 10,000 injured by the Israeli strikes, and another 1,000 declared missing, with almost a quarter of the total casualties being children. Up next, a 6-year-old boy in the U.S. has been the victim of a horrific hate crime. A third earthquake hits Afghanistan in 2 weeks. And hospitality workers take to the streets of Nevada to fight for better working conditions. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Best Public Affairs Program. And the star goes to Open for Business Net 25.
It is a signal to the world that we are open for business.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Aaksyon sa lahat ng problema. Walang uurungang reklamo. Re-responde anumang sitwasyon. Kung kayo po ay may sumbong, mag-text lamang po sa 0915-415-1035. Mag-email din sa responde@net25.com. Pwede rin kayo magpadala ng inyong po mensahe sa ating pong Facebook page at Net25TV. Walang imposible at lahat may solusyon sa mga totoong certified e-responder.
More fallout from the war between Israel and Hamas, this time in the United States. A landlord has been charged with hate crimes after fatally stabbing a child and wounding a woman because they are Muslim. Kimi Oria has more details.
Police are linking the attack on Saturday to the war between Israel and Hamas. The slaying took place about 65 kilometers west of Chicago in a small, unincorporated community. Police say a 6-year-old boy had been stabbed 26 times in the brutal attack. He died in hospital. A woman, believed to be his mother, is in hospital and expected to survive. Police say the woman managed to call 911 as she fought off the landlord. Police say a serrated military-style knife had been pulled from the boy's abdomen during an autopsy. The Council on American Islamic Relations calls the attack its worst nightmare. It says text messages sent by the woman to her husband indicated the landlord knocked on the door, tried to choke her, and said, "You Muslims must die." 71-year-old Joseph Chuba has been charged with murder, attempted murder, and hate crimes. Kimi Oria from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hamas armed men reportedly abducted a 72-year-old grandmother, Adina Moshe, from the Nir Oz kibbutz near Gaza. The assailants forcefully entered her safe room, and she was last seen on a motorcycle between two Hamas gunmen being driven away. Adina Moshe's husband was also reportedly killed by the militants during the struggle to protect their home. Moshe's family is deeply concerned for her well-being, especially due to her heart condition. They are desperately hoping to ensure she receives the necessary medication despite her captivity.
Ecuador's port city of Guayaquil has become a hotbed of violence as drug gangs battle over turf. Gangland executions have become a daily affair. Jessica Bautista reports.
Crime scenes like this are commonplace in Ecuador. Police investigating another homicide. The South American country is wedged between the cocaine-producing nations of Colombia and Peru. Cartels use Ecuador's ports to flood the world with the drug. Once a haven of peace, Ecuador is grappling with the bloodshed and violence from the drug trade. The streets of Guayaquil have been hit by car bombs and drive-by shootings. Kidnapped victims have had their fingers cut off to boost ransom demands. Hundreds have been killed in prison gang fights. The violence has become an issue in the country's presidential election slated for this Sunday. Journalists covering the campaign say they have received threats, and many have taken to wearing helmets and bulletproof vests. Self-censorship has become standard operating procedure for some news organizations. They say it is too risky to report on the gangs and cartels. Jessica Bautista for Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A powerful magnitude 6.3 earthquake has once again shaken the quake-devastated region in western Afghanistan for the third time. The United States Geological Survey located the center of the latest quake at about 30 kilometers outside Herat City and 6 kilometers below the surface. Aid group Save the Children said 4 people were killed, while Hart Regional Hospital said it admitted 153 injured victims. The aid group said several villages have been destroyed, especially in the Balok area of Rabat Sangi district, where everything has collapsed. A deadly bus crash in northwestern Honduras Sunday has left at least 4 people dead. Another 20 are injured. Shen Kadusala reports.
The 4 crash victims are believed to be migrants from Venezuela. The bus apparently plunged into a canyon, leaving several people trapped. Part of the bus ended up underwater in a river at the bottom of the canyon. Rescue crews, aided by a crane, managed to free a number of people. Local media reports ambulances took 6 people to the hospital. Another 15 who had serious injuries refused transport. One witness says the bus carried about 70 passengers from several countries. She claims the bus appeared to have mechanical problems. Shen Kadusali from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
On Sunday, Ecuador has elected Daniel Noboa as the country's youngest president. Noboa won Sunday's election with 52.3% of the vote, ahead of Luisa Gonzalez's 47.7%, as she conceded defeat and congratulated her rival. The 35-year-old of the National Democratic Action Party is the son of Alvaro Noboa, who ran unsuccessfully for the presidency 5 times. As people celebrated Noboa's victory throughout the country's capital, Quito, the president-elect vows to restore peace to a country ravaged by a bloody drug gang war.
Y también darle gracias a todas esas personas que han sido parte de un proyecto político nuevo, de un proyecto político joven, de un proyecto político improbable. Un proyecto político el cual su fin era devolverle una sonrisa al país, era devolverle la paz a un país, volverle a dar educación a la juventud, volverle a dar empleo a la cantidad de personas que hoy en día lo están buscando, darle tranquilidad a las familias que hoy en día no pueden salir a la calle. Nosotros hoy cerramos un capítulo de campaña, mañana empezamos a trabajar por ese nuevo Ecuador, mañana empezamos a trabajar. Hoy empezamos a trabajar para reconstruir un país que ha sido gravemente golpeado por la violencia, por la corrupción y por el odio. Desde mañana empieza a trabajar la esperanza, desde mañana empieza a trabajar Daniel Noboa, su nuevo presidente de la República. Muchas gracias.
Ecuador has seen violence explode in recent years as enemy gangs with links to Mexican and Colombian cartels vie for control. Noboa will only have 17 months in office. He will govern only till May of 2025 due to the current election having been triggered early when outgoing President Guillermo Lasso dissolved parliament amid an impeachment trial. Noboa can run again for the 2025 to 2029 presidential term if he wishes.
Hospitality industry workers in the state of Nevada take to the picket lines demanding increase in wages and better benefits. Our Las Vegas Bureau Chief Anna Cui speaks to them in this report.
For the first time in over 3 decades, thousands of culinary and bartenders union members held picket lines at multiple hotel properties on the Las Vegas Strip as negotiations for a new 5-year contract have yet to show any signs of progress. Culinary Union represents 60,000 hospitality workers in Nevada, 53,000 of which are based in Las Vegas. We spoke with Ted Papageorge, Secretary-Treasurer of the Culinary Union, and here's what he had to say about the negotiations.
Well, we've been bargaining with these large companies on the Strip for over 5 months, MGM Resorts, Caesars Entertainment, and also Wynn Resorts, and we haven't made any progress.
Union members voted by 95% last month to authorize a citywide strike. Let's listen again to Papageorge.
Today, this picketing is to send a clear, powerful message to this industry that they need to come to the bargaining table with some reasonable proposals in hopes of settling a contract, because we're not going to take second class.
Papageorge said they're proposing the largest wage increases ever negotiated in the history of the Culinary Union. He also said, in addition to wages, healthcare and pension are critical because people are still dealing with inflation since the pandemic. A language against technology and AI eliminating jobs is also part of the proposal.
We know that pay and wages and benefits are super important, but if you don't have job security, it doesn't matter. You can get a $10 an hour raise, but if they can subcontract you out your job or tech can take your job, it doesn't matter. So there really isn't one that's more important than the other. They all fit together, and that's what a union contract does.
A good contract is echoed by union workers and say they're ready to go on strike.
Sign the soon as possible. We don't want to get to this point. We haven't had a raise in a long time. Everything is so, so high. Everything, the value is, the dollar is not the same anymore. But if we have to, we got to go all the way.
Not everyone is eager to go on strike.
Strike is not fun. I've never been out on strike, but I definitely know when I haven't been able to work, I'm not earning anything. And then I worry about paying the bills. Now, how many of us are going to have to go out on strike and then become homeless? That is the scarier part for me.
According to Papageorge, the next round of negotiations is scheduled before the end of October, and he said they'll be ready to set a strike deadline if it doesn't settle a great contract.
One of the problems is these companies have made this incredible recovery, and they have these incredible events coming in, like Formula One or the Super Bowl and CES and New Year's, but they can't do it without the workers.
All of these buildings that you see all around us, they are not maintained by these people that are running the show. They are ran by us. We are the front lines. We take it all. We clean it up, and we're supposed to do it with a smile.
And we think it's unfortunate companies may have forgotten the fact that it's the workers that got them to these incredible profits, and they're the reason that they can have these incredible events. So they got to come to the table, and we'll see.
In Las Vegas, Anna Cui reporting from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Worldwide Fund for Nature Philippines unveils its new program for young student leaders on environmental conservation and climate change issues. Bernadette Manuel reports.
Recognizing today's youth's key role as tomorrow's guardians of the environment, Worldwide Fund for Nature Philippines, or WWF Philippines, launches Youth Are the Future, a leadership program aimed to equip young student leaders on environmental conservation, climate change, and sustainability issues. Commencing with the grand launch, the student ambassadors from various Metro Manila high schools participated in a discovery tour which features sustainability efforts and disaster resiliency practices. In a message delivered during the event, Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or DENR Secretary Maria Antonia Yulo Loizaga said, "Our journey is really about the race to resilience. As our climate changes, society is changing. Sustainability is our pathway to survival as a planet, and that is what resilience is really about. The ability to withstand the impacts of the hazards that we know and those that we could face in the future." The youth ambassadors will participate in a 3-day eco camp at the Pico de Loro Beach and Country Club in November, where they will learn about waste and energy management, resource optimization, and climate mitigation and adaptation strategies from some of the country's experts. Renowned for its role in olive ridley sea turtle conservation, the 3-day eco camp in Hamilo Coast also serves as an immersive natural classroom in environmental conservation. Together with its partners, WWF Philippines hope to empower young Filipinos further to become the next generation of sustainability champions. Programs like Youth Are the Future can help future generations become proactive leaders who can #change the ending for the planet. Bernadette Manuel for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, Joe Biden eyes limiting microchips sent to China. Microsoft fully acquires Activision Blizzard after a long legal battle. And Adobe unveils their new high-tech fashion project. Catch more news in business, tech, and entertainment when we return.
Sumulat po ako dahil gusto kong i-promote sa national TV ang aking karinderya.
Di mag-extra rice ka rin, umorder ka. Considerate mo naman eh!
Medyo familiar ako sa mga ganyang away. Pero para hindi kayo magkasamaan ng loob, pwede naman kayo mag-compromise. Ate, ano ginagawa mo? Tinitignan ko kasi kung may pagkain na sa table nila. Para kung wala pa, alokan ko sila.
Gusto lang naman niya makabenta ng mas marami.
Alam mo, ang ginagawa niya, para na rin siyang nagde-trespassing.
Love, Boss Leng, and Tali. Tuwing linggo, 6:00 ng gabi dito lang sa Net 25.
O kung hindi nyo alam ang sagot sa tanong ko, walang problema, ayos lang yan. Ang mahalaga ay hindi alam ng kalaban mo ang sagot para sa iyo.
Sources say the Biden administration is considering closing a loophole that gives Chinese companies access to American artificial intelligence or AI chips. Experts say Chinese firms can purchase American AI chips for use in data centers abroad. It is illegal under U.S. law to ship AI chips to mainland China. But experts say it is very difficult for the U.S. to oversee these transactions. China has not responded to the latest regulations planned by the United States. Microsoft has completed its takeover of Activision Blizzard after United Kingdom antitrust officials approved its planned acquisition of the firm. The Competition and Markets Authority said the merger had been cleared after the two companies agreed to yield certain cloud gaming rights, a concession that would allow competitive prices and better services. In 2022, Microsoft unveiled its acquisition deal with Activision, but the UK competition regulator blocked the agreement in April of the same year. This is on concerns about competition in the cloud gaming market, citing Microsoft could seek to make Activision's games exclusive to its own platforms. Meanwhile, in August, Microsoft and Activision addressed the said concerns by revising the deal. The revised terms include Activision's cloud streaming rights outside the European Union and other 3 countries to be sold to a rival firm, which is Ubisoft Entertainment. Software company giant Adobe introduces Project Primrose, a digital animated dress that can change patterns. Christine Dierk, the research scientist behind the dress, both introduced and modeled the garment, calling it a digital dress that brings fabric to life. The interactive garment is a strapless, knee-length dress that comprises lots of small and scale-like screens. It also has a button that activates changes in the dress and a buttonless mode that relies on embedded sensors. Although currently just unveiled as a product showcase, it is not entirely clear if Primrose plans on being available to developers or even consumers anytime soon.
Come on, that's crazy.
The Miss Cosmo World pageant opens as an avenue to empower women and to make their voices heard. We've had the privilege of joining all of the women who walked the runway on their special night. They say that the Philippines is a powerhouse in pageantry. This is because modern Pinays continue to prove that they are smart, beautiful, and hardworking. They use this platform to inspire the communities around them to take action in various advocacies that they are passionate about. During its first year, Miss Cosmo World Philippines 2023 is sending out the message that there is no limitations on what Filipinas can achieve. Come with me as I host this much-awaited Miss Cosmo World Philippines 2023 Coronation Night. At the Leo Theater in Pasay City, Miss Cosmo World Philippines, on its first year, prized themselves in standing for the limitless potential of Filipino women, specifically inducing lessons on financial literacy. Meiji Cruz, Miss Cosmo World 2022 and owner of the Philippine National franchise, shares how years of being a pageant candidate made her ensure to provide the 21 candidates of this competition with the best experience. So Meiji, it is actually your idea to start Miss Cosmo World Philippines here in our country. What made you come to that idea?
Well, after winning the crown, I had given this opportunity to be the franchise holder. And with that amazing, talented team behind me, I gained the confidence that, yes, let's get this franchise. I have Tito Agila-Flores as the national director, Tito Joey as the PR head. So I think we can make it. I have that confidence. Let's do this.
And what kind of events happened leading up to this coronation night?
So we have at first photo shoots, we have our official portraits, our major pre-pageant activities like preliminary competition. We also had charity and gala night wherein the girls presented their talent competition, their modern turno. And yes, we worked with charity also. That night, the proceeds of the tickets, we donated it to an NGO.
Agila-Flores, National Director of Miss Cosmo World Philippines 2023 and veteran Philippine pageant coach, also details the event spanning a couple of months, including swimsuit and evening gown preliminaries, closed-door interviews, and workshops on how the candidates can be the best representatives for their country during international competitions. And of course, tonight is just a culmination of so many events that you've had for Miss Cosmo World Philippines. Tell us a little bit about what has happened recently.
From the start, we launched the search in April, then we had the screening last July, and then we had our photo shoot seminars because you know the advocacy of Miss Cosmo World is centers on financial literacy, and then we honed their personality. We had personality development, we had speech training, we had makeup training, and the works. It's a whole package for them to really improve on their performance and their personalities.
The star-studded panel of judges during Coronation Night, dubbed as the finale, included actress Sanya Lopez, Miss Globe 2021 Maureen Montang, and the founder of Miss Cosmo World herself, Carrie Lee. Kaylin Trejano, also among the judges, details what the criteria was for who came out victorious at the end of the night. After the visually impressive opening of national costumes, a unique interview portion with the semifinalists conducted by Head for Communications Joey Gilas, and the final Q&A portion led by yours truly, ultimately, 27-year-old Elda Aznar bested out the competition to be the Philippine representative for the Miss Cosmo World International Competition in Malaysia this November. Jasmine Omay from Carrascal, Surigao del Sur, and Lunel Navidad from Albay placed first and second runners-up, respectively. The stars have truly aligned for the newest winner of Miss Cosmo World Philippines 2023, ready to represent her country during the upcoming international competition in Malaysia this November. Amidst the glitz and glam of pageantry, this night exemplifies the essence of these competitions. Using your voice, really making that difference and inspiring other people around you. It has been an honor to host this Coronation Night. This is Gianna Llanes from Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Different kind of beauty this time. Sky gazers across America gathered to watch the Ring of Fire eclipse. Observers wear protective eyewear in order to safely witness the annular solar eclipse. NASA warned spectators not to look at the sun through a camera lens, telescope, binoculars, or any optical device. The space agency added that the concentrated solar rays will burn through the filter and cause serious eye injury. The celestial event was seen crossing into Mexico and Central America, then into South America and northern Brazil, ending at sunset in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, the experience was so good. Seeing the eclipse, I mean, probably you see few of that in your lifetime. I'm happy to see one.
It's kind of like a black hole. The moon covers the sun and then there's a ring around it that's red.
And to start the week, here's a quote from the late Suzanne Summers, American actress and writer. Visualize your ultimate goal and then do the work to make it happen.
Because of course, when you visualize it, you welcome it as a possibility to enter your life.
Exactly, and our favorite word nowadays is manifest. Is that right? Yeah, and it's a perfect quote for the beginning of the week.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alagao-Flores. This is Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Thank you for choosing Matanang Agila International, your trusted news source, connecting you to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.